Today we're going to talk about tension and the problems you might have getting your tension adjusted. One of the major problems people have are loops on the bottom of the quilt. Generally that's caused by the upper tension being too loose or the machine not threaded properly. So probably the first thing we should look at is how to get the machine threaded proper. You want to make sure that your rear thread guide is centered over the cone so that the thread does not catch coming off the cone. Hook it over the loop. Next you're going to go through the bottom hole on the spool pin, or if it's a fun quilter you want to be on the closest hole to the machine. Next you're going to go through the 3-hole thread guide. So you're going to start down through the first hole, up through the middle one, and then down through the last one. The reason we use the lower hole on the spool pin, when the thread comes up off the cone, sometimes it'll jump and the thread will bounce and it will loop right around the pin. You won't see it when you're sewing. If you use the upper one, it doesn't take as much of a loop to catch and break your thread, so it's best to use the lower one. And the reason I don't wrap the thread around my 3-hole thread guide is because the more wraps you have, you're taking away from the fine adjustment of your tension. Next, we're going to thread the tension discs. You want to make sure that you're holding the thread against the machine with your thumb or somehow so it doesn't slip. Put the thread between the tension discs and make sure it's pulled all the way in tight against the discs, up against the shaft inside. If not, you won't be able to adjust your tension. Next, you're going to hook over the check spring or tension spring. You want to make sure that the check spring has some bounce to it so it pulls the thread back up. And you're going to go under the next thread guide, which is the duck bill. You don't want to miss that one. If you do, you'll get a lot of loops underneath. This is the take-up lever, and this is the next step. Next is the pigtail thread guide. Some machines have 2 and some have 1. I'm going to go through the first one, and we're going to go down to the second one. Next is a needle bar thread guide held in place with a needle screw. Hook it into there. And then we're going to thread the needle from the front to the back. Always be sure your needle's in properly. One trick that was taught to me years ago is when your thread is bouncing coming off the cone and you want to smooth that out, if you take a small piece of batting, fold it in half over your thread and tuck it into the thread guide, it'll smooth the travel of the thread out as it comes through. It won't jump around. Just keep in mind it adds a little bit of tension to your upper tension. So there's a lot of things that are going to affect your tension also, and one is to make sure that your quilt is not stretched too tight on your rollers. That will close the pores up in the fabric. Another thing that you need to look at, you need to make sure that you oil the hook assembly every other bobbin and warm the machine up. And the best way to do that is to run a constant speed with no thread in it, but put your bobbin case in there so it warms up also.